He tends to paint sexuality as something that is a favor to men. If you marry someone, both men and women, you're obligated to have sex with them. Well, should you have sex when you don't want to, just to please someone? Get yourself in the mood.
Don't feel like you have to uphold your commitment that you made when someone else broke it to begin with.
Yeah.
If you feel like you cannot respect this person anymore because of what they did to you, and the love has changed and the relationship dynamic has changed and you don't think it can be repaired, it is fine to separate.
And then the final one is the sexuality, which, I mean, it's pretty obvious with that. But I think one thing, though, that I did actually disagree, we talked about this in this book as well, is that he tends to paint sexuality as something that is a favor to men, which is a very narrow-sighted view of it. And it also, I think, it's destructive of the relationship if it's like
a chore or like just something that you do. Actually, unfortunately, a lot of books, even the surrendered wife one, is very much like, just do it if he wants to do it. You know, like they don't give a woman a way to connect with her husband. So it's not just do it when you don't want to do it.
And that, and that's a common thing, I think, is that, well, there's two pieces to this. One is that, hey, if you marry someone, both men and women, you're obligated to have sex with them, like on a regular basis, because you want them to be exclusive with you. You either have to open up the marriage, which is a horrible idea, divorce them, or you need to meet their sexual needs, right? I think that's on both sides, and I've heard women complain about it and men complain about it. But at the same time, there's this conflict of, well, should you have sex when you don't want to, just to please someone? And actually, the book that really actually addressed it is Why Women Have Sex, because I was re-listening to that when I was doing some research for one of my videos. And she was talking about in the book, and actually I think there's this book on seduction I read too that also maybe has the same thing, is that like, instead of thinking, okay, I need to do this just because I owe it or I want my partner to be happy, even though I'm not in the mood, get yourself in the mood, which you can do, right? Like you can help yourself get into the mood or be receptive to being seduced or to being put into the mood, as opposed to thinking of it as a chore or something that you have to do because you don't want it to ever become that. And that's the thing is like, if it's like an obligation, then it's going to become a chore, right? But can you do things that facilitate you becoming more so in the mood? So anyway, I just wanted to make that point because that also was a little bit like, in the book, because it makes it feel like, and no one wants to feel like they're being done a favor, because look, the woman should also be appreciating the sex as the man. It shouldn't be a one-way thing. And culturally, a lot of times it is, where it's like, oh, she's doing a favor for him by having sex with him. First of all, guys, that's not a good way to look at you shouldn't be thinking about things like that, right? You should be thinking, I'm doing her, no, you shouldn't think it that way either.
They should be trying like they're doing that. Yeah.
But you should be so good, or that she feels like you're doing her a favor. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but it shouldn't even be for anyone a favor. It should just be like you both want to and want each other. And as soon as you start thinking of it as, oh, I'm doing this a favor in a sexual way, it creates a big problem. So
yeah, that's true. There was one other thing that I just wanted to bring up, that in this book, a lot of the women had been cheated on. And he's still saying to give him unconditional respect and love. And personally, I understand why you would lose respect for a man that's cheated on you.
Right.
And, more power to people, and I've said this before, who can gain that trust and respect back and stay with the person that has cheated on them. But also, and I know from a religious standpoint, divorce is like, you want to stay as far away from possible. But I do want to say, as a woman reading this, that if you have been cheated on, you don't have to continue to stay in the relationship. I'm not saying be disrespectful back, but that's a very disrespectful thing that a man, and unloving thing a man can do to a woman.
Yeah.
And a lot of these women in here that had that story are still continuing to try to be with the man who did that to them. And supposedly it's working out for them, but I also don't want women to feel like they have to continue to be respectful and loving to somebody that did something so unloving and disrespectful to them, because that is a breach in your marital vows.
Right. Yeah.
Like, and that's why too, in the couples, he puts loyalty, because men are typically the ones who go astray and have affairs. And, you know, in the last episode we just recorded, we talked about why that happens a lot of the time. So you should go watch that one too. But I just wanted to add in there that if you read this book, especially as a woman, and you're reading it and you've been cheated on by your husband or something, like, try this if that's what you want. If you are choosing to stay in that relationship, this is a good way to try to get that dynamic back. However, you don't have to stay.
Right.
Because that person broke that trust and disrespected you and did an unloving thing to you to begin with. Because a lot of people stay in stuff that
just because it's a religious
thing.
Because
it's a commitment and they are going to still go through with their commitment. But a lot of those people don't realize that if your partner breaks the commitment, and in other ways too, besides being unfaithful,
abuse,
you do not have to continue that commitment.
Right.
And a lot of times you shouldn't, because they just prove to you that they can't commit to what they vowed to you.
Right.
Now, if you want to work through it and you feel like it's worth working through, I'm not saying don't do that.
Right.
But I'm saying that don't feel like you have to uphold your commitment that you made when someone else broke it to begin with.
Yeah.
If you feel like you cannot respect this person anymore because of what they did to you, and the love has changed and the relationship dynamic has changed, and you don't think it can be repaired, it is fine to separate.
Yeah. And
in those instances. But it has to be an instance like that, an affair or abuse or something like that. Otherwise, you should be upholding your commitment to the vows that you made. And a lot of people today don't they just...
It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, they just decide that they're growing apart. And instead of really trying as hard as they can, they divorce, which I don't think is right.
No,
but if it's abuse, physical, mental, emotional, or infidelity, in my mind, those are grounds for whatever you need to get out of that situation is acceptable. Like I said, because that person has broken their vows to you, so you do not have to uphold yours to them.
And we talked about this before too, which is, it's kind of weird to say this, but if you think about it, it does make sense, which is that the people that work through the infidelities, it's actually less severe, the infidelity, if the relationship's bad than if it's good. Because if you're in this cycle and you're both treating each other poorly and then someone has an affair, you're much more likely to be able to work through that and fix everything than if everything's going good and someone has an affair. It actually is a lot more of a betrayal.
Right.
Because it was unexpected, because there's, so just, for what that's worth, I think that's worth saying. But I agree as well, as it's like, you can't just be like, okay, I'm just going to stick to this thing. I'm just going to ride this horse because this is a horse that I chose. Yeah. I mean, divorce is probably the worst thing that you'll go through in your life. So you should avoid it. It affects children, affects everyone in the family. So you should avoid it at all costs. But at the same time, there are circumstances where that's going to be the best option. If you can save it, save it. And again, that's the same thing we talked about with this book too, is it's like, some people, it seems like maybe they shouldn't be together, especially some of the stories in this book. There was like some stuff where it was like, what? This is what you think about your spouse? And, why are you with them?
Right.
And look, if you've been together for 10, 15 years and you got a lot of tooth decay,
your teeth are going to fall out.
You should try to fix that. Like, put a real effort into it. And if you can't, then okay. But are you doing the thing that you can? That's the question.